A fast growth company might think we're just going to move fast, break things, and we'll come back later and fix these problems. And it doesn't really work that way. It doesn't, in my experience, it goes from, maybe a very small problem, or you think it's a small problem, to crisis company-wide very quickly. So I guess what I would say is don't underestimate the costs of some of these things, just because it's not easy to put a dollar figure right by it.
Welcome to Growth Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
The foundations of business, many times we set them and we hope that they'll carry us through all of the tough times and through all of the growth and the challenges that we have to face as leaders and as organizations. Those foundational elements are really important. Sometimes we lose sight of how important they are. One of the things we're going to talk about today is being a values-driven organization. Values become a common guidepost, become a way to reduce friction across communication lines, a way to align people together. If you don't have values in your organization, you're missing an opportunity to create the kind of culture that you're really proud of. Values-driven organizations have a higher retention rate, and they are there to serve you and serve your employees. Today, our special guest is Kurt Luidhardt. He is a co-founder of Prosper Group. Prosper Group is a digital marketing agency for political campaigns. I want to share with you some of the real important pieces to putting your core values front and center. Now, we talk about why he only has 3 core values, what those values are, how he uses them on a ritual basis, why peer recognition is important. We also talk about the core elements of growing as a leader. When you listen in this podcast, make sure you prepare to look at your own values, look at how you're using them, and are they really creating a values-driven organization? Here's the interview with Kurt. Before we dive into the interview, I wanted to remind you that you can actually get a tool that I've been working with clients with for the last couple of years. I've refined this tool that's gone through several iterations. Now we have it completely automated. You can actually go online and fill out the leadership quiz. To get the leadership quiz, just go to theleadershipquiz.com. That's pretty easy, right? Theleadershipquiz.com. What you will get when you do that is you will answer a few questions. You will see where you rate based on the core principles of fast growth companies. If you're ready to grow your company or you want to see where you are, then make sure you go to theleadershipquiz.com. Inside it, you will get insight to where you are, understand where you want to improve, and you will get them mapped into the 10 areas that are most specific to fast growth companies. Again, go to theleadershipquiz.com and you can get that right now. Hi, Kurt. How are you?
Wonderful.
Well, you got a big smile on your face. Glad to have you here at Growth Think Tank. I want to give you a chance to tell us a little bit about Prosper Group. How would you phrase what you guys do?
Well, Prosper Group's one of the largest digital marketing agencies in the country, focused on working for political campaigns and causes. We've been doing it for just shy of 15 years now.
Well, I know that we're recording this as we're hopefully coming out of COVID-19 shutdowns. I got to ask, given that you work mostly on campaigns and whatnot, have you had much of an impact from the business?
Well, political candidates are a little wary of campaigning too proactively and looking like they're taking advantage of a crisis in any way. So it's changed the way they want to communicate to the public. And then, of course, many states have pushed their elections back and or changed the rules of the game. And so it's changed for many of my clients their entire strategy for victory here in just a few weeks.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't watch a lot of news right now. It's not the most positive thing going on, but I can't remember a time where I've seen less political than right now.
Yeah. Well, all it means is it's all being saved up, and then when we get a little closer to the general election, it's going to come in a big way. So you won't be able to get away from it soon.
I will trust that that will be what's happening. Kurt, you have made the Inc. list before, and you really grew fast. Number 466, you're over 17 million in revenues. I'm sure you've grown since then. One of the things I love to ask is, besides having fast growth, what are you really proud of there at Prosper Group?
I'm really proud of the fact that we have very high retention rates for our employees, and overall, what I would consider to be a really positive culture that encourages that.
It's not the first time I've had a leader come in and talk about their retention rates. And when you think about that, why is that so important as the company has grown fast?
Well, I think I learn, relearn, and then relearn the same lesson all over again, and that is that my product, because of the work we're in, is essentially my people. And whereas if I were selling cars, I'd be trying to tweak the engine to make it better, or provide a better experience for the drivers. But for me, it's about the quality of the people that I'm putting in front of my clients and their ability to do the work and do it well. And key to them executing well is the experience that they have. And so if I can retain them longer, they get better over time. They're more familiar with it. And frankly, the money I'm willing to spend on training them and providing them the resources. And I keep relearning the lesson that there's really no amount of time or money that can be spent that's too much to make that better.
Kurt, one of the things that we talked about earlier is the reason why the company's growing so fast is because you have a really high focus on some of the foundational elements of the business in general and the culture. And one of those things is values. So tell us, why values are important to your company.
I think that when we articulated them for the first time, and I think they already existed in some respects, but we hadn't articulated them, it really helped to establish an identity for the company and for the people who work for us. And it reduced friction and has contributed to growth because we find like-minded people. And when we're involved in a lot of cause marketing, I think you need to find people who are motivated by that. And so having an established set of core values that you're looking for really helped us to propel forward.
How many core values do you have, Kurt?
Three.
Okay, let's go through those three. Can you rattle them off? I know you can remember.
Oh yes. Yeah. So we're looking for people who are willing to be a mountain climber, which for us means the ability to cross over obstacles, to look at challenges with enthusiasm and find a way to solve a problem or something for a client. To strive for excellence also means to have that kind of keen attention to detail and desire to do their job well that comes out in the form of producing excellent work, and then to leave their ego at their door, which I think has two sorts of meanings for us. One is a little bit about how we represent ourselves to the public, where we like to be the behind the scenes marketing agency that gets the work done for our clients and shines the light on them, not on us. But also for our employees, it means that we're looking for unselfish individuals who never say things like, "This isn't my job," or "Why didn't they do that?" or "This isn't worth my time."
Why are core values so important? Did you learn this through other work or just something that you wanted to make a part of your company?
There was a moment about 7 or 8 years in when we hit a spot where my wife and I, who founded the company together, realized there was a lot of sort of friction, maybe just growth from infant to adolescence or what have you, was creating problems for the company. And we realized we never really articulated to our employees what was expected of them, what we cared about, and what sorts of behavior should be encouraged. And so that's why then we went hunting around for, okay, what do other good and successful companies do, and stumbled across a whole group of business books by Pat Lencioni, who I'm sure you're familiar with, and we've stolen a lot of his concepts to create organizational health within the company.
Hold on for a second. Kurt just talked about hitting friction. Have you ever felt friction inside your own organization? Maybe it's because the meetings aren't running effectively. You're not getting the things done the way you want to. Well, sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. What I mean by that is you got to step back and take a different perspective around what's going on. Kurt shares a story about how he did that, and him and his wife moving this business forward, he had to slow down to speed up. I'm putting a spotlight on it right now because I want you to see for yourself. If you're feeling friction, just pause, take a look around, see what you haven't seen before. Maybe there's a lesson to be learned, or maybe there's something you need to do before you move forward. I share this with you because I want to see you grow as a leader. Back to Kurt. Absolutely. So let's dive into the steps here. And I'm not going to talk about how you came up with them, because I think that's an individual journey. But I want to talk about how you reinforce them. I call this operationalizing the values. Have you heard that term before?
Yes, I have.
What does operationalizing the values mean to you?
Well, for us, it means at every step of the employee journey, we want to incorporate our values. So you hear about them in your interview, and we also have several things that we're looking for when we interview employees to help identify folks that we think already reflect those values. Simple tricks. I'm always trying to invite a potential employee to criticize their former coworkers or employer. And that's usually a good way to weed out people who won't fit with our leaving their ego at the door value. We have a pretty, I think, even for relatively entry-level employees, a fairly arduous interview process. You're going to at least do 4 interviews, and one of them will be with multiple future coworkers. We call that the culture interview, and that when their current employees meet with a potential new employee, and they focus a lot on culture and how they want to exist in a workplace. So that's important part of our operationalization to operationalize the values. We also do a once a month recognition where each employee can nominate another coworker for representing one of those values. And one thing that's not highlighted as a value of ours, but seems to come out on its own, we have a pretty fun culture. So those recognitions also tend to be a little tongue-in-cheek, but that gives employees a chance to recognize each other for striving for excellence and leaving their egos at the door, etc.
I love the fact that you have engineered this peer-to-peer recognition, because that probably has a lot to do with the collaboration and working as a team. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, well, and it certainly it reminds people of the values we care about, and it gives and you're absolutely right, it gives team members a chance to be acknowledged and to get those kudos. And we get a lot of good feedback from employees about that, as well as the interview and then the initial onboarding process, I think, where we spend a lot of time on each. By the time you've been through our onboarding process, if you've not had 4 or 5 different people talk about the values, something's not right.
Well, I know that this is a very important piece. Do you do anything with onboarding with values?
Yeah, so they hear about it. Um, uh, the first time they will hear about it is with our talent acquisition team member, who goes through them, explains them, and then has the new person um, brainstorm how they think those values will apply to their new job. So they get in front of a whiteboard and go through that exercise together. That's a strong start. They should hear then specific um, feedback from their supervisor on how he or she thinks that the values, how they should represent those values in their job. My wife and I have 2 separate sessions with each new employee, from intern to VP level, where we tell the company story, our origin story, if you will, and we incorporate the values into that origin story. And then I repeat them again. Sometimes I do this one alone. Sometimes Kristen and I do it together, where I go through sort of what I call a strategic look at the company and talk about our strategy for prevailing in the industry and how we differentiate ourselves from our competitors. And we also talk about values there. So they hear about it a lot. And then I hope, I think I feel pretty good that they see that in the way we run the company. Definitely the leaving the ego at the door. Sometimes we, I think, go even a little too far there and fail to tell our story effectively. And then they also see that striving for excellence, as well as the desire to be, as well as mountain climbing, directly from clients, because we give them a lot of, both of those values are appreciated by our clients. And so I think staff get to see the consequences of living by those values from feedback they get from clients.
Hold on again. Kurt just talked about putting values in the origin story. I think this is an excellent tip for you, because if you really did do the work to come up with your values and you figured out that they came from somewhere in your origin story, why not highlight them? Why not let that be a point of reinforcement? Because we remember stories. If you put the values inside that story, you have a good chance for your employees to remember it. Or maybe it's even your partners or customers. Go back and look at your origin story. See how your values really do make sense to put in there, and tell it in a new way, a little fresh attitude around sharing that origin story. Back to Kurt. Kurt, you probably made 1 or 2 mistakes, just 1 or 2. Any mistakes stand out as a defining moment where you had to evolve as a leader?
Well, I was thinking about that, and it's hard not to think about it in light of this sort of surprise out of nowhere pandemic / economic downturn / shutdown. And, one of the things I think we're working through is, as a high growth agency, it's easy to think that all problems are solved by more bodies. And then when we see out of nowhere clients, reducing spending, et cetera, then I think, well, man, maybe we hired too fast. We'll see if that's the case or not. I don't know if we all go back to work and everything returns to normal or not. The other thing I'm reflecting on right now is, and we've made this observation before. Also, I think as a marketing agency, it's been an easy trap for us to fall into, to say yes to work that we probably should have just let somebody else do. Take on a client that wasn't going to be particularly profitable, either because we had an aggressive sales goal we wanted to meet, or just didn't want to say no. So those are mistakes, I think, to go back to my relearning. I kind of relearn those lessons from time to time.
Well, I appreciate that, because sometimes we have to go through this process of unlearning so that we can actually move forward. I want to wrap this interview up with a chance for you to maybe whisper in the ear of a leader who hasn't put the attention to values that you have. What would you tell someone if you're sitting down across from someone that's got some of that friction going on? Maybe they're just not communicating the way you would want them to. What would you tell that leader?
Um, the hidden cost um, of not having a value-centric or just straight up strong culture is much higher than you think it is. And a fast growth company might think we're just going to move fast, break things, and we'll come back later and fix these problems. And it doesn't really work that way. It doesn't. In my experience, it goes from maybe a very small problem, or you think it's a small problem, to crisis company wide very quickly. So I guess what I would say is don't underestimate the costs of some of these things, just because it's not easy to put a dollar figure right by it.
Well said, Kurt. Appreciate you being here on the show, and thanks for sharing your wisdom.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
I love talking about values. Really important piece to those foundational elements of a business. When I asked Kurt about this question about values, and he said there's a hidden cost to not being a values-driven organization, I thought that it's something I should put a spotlight on right here. There really is a cost to it. Even though you can't measure the return for values, if you lack an adherence to the values in the workplace, the hiring, the onboarding, the leading, developing, firing people, then you miss that opportunity. Because I'm here to share with you the core elements of fast growth companies, and values is something that happens across so many of them. I'm actually very surprised to hear a fast growth company that doesn't have a rigor to their values. So today we share this interview with you to trigger you to really put more focus on your own values. My work is really inspiring me to share with you content like this, to be able to share with you all the details it takes for you to evolve through your leadership journey. In fact, I work with leaders that want to evolve beyond where they are today. They're already successful, but they know there's more impact that they can make. There's more people to develop. There's more growth that they have yet to obtain. If that's you, make sure you reach out to me, gene@genehammett.com. I love to work with leaders that are going through the defining moments of their own journey. I help them get really clear about who they are and how they move forward. Some of that's strategy, some of that's mindset. I think you need both. When you think about your own growth, do you just push it aside and just get the work done? Or do you really take time and pause and say, how are you growing? I love sharing these interviews with you. Hopefully you enjoy taking them in. Hopefully you enjoy sharing them with someone that you think would appreciate interviews with fast growth founders. And make sure you keep coming back listening to more episodes. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.